Revealed. My daughter's shocking words exposed a hidden truth that changed everything forever. In the heart of a small Midwest town, Sarah was the embodiment of resilience. A dedicated 38-year-old high school teacher, she balanced lesson plans with waiting tables at the local diner every evening. Her husband's sudden job loss had turned their world upside down, leaving Sarah scrambling to make ends meet. Bills piled up, and the stress was like a heavy weight on her chest. But every morning, she pushed through, believing that hard work would eventually pay off. One night, while Sarah served patrons burgers and milkshakes, her daughter, Emma, was at home. The 16-year-old had always been a shining star, excelling in academics, with dreams bigger than their modest kitchen. But the burden of their financial reality weighed heavy on her shoulders. She overheard a group of parents chatting about a new scholarship for minority students. Emma's heart raced at the thought of a bright future, but when she learned that it focused more on background than merit, her excitement turned into a storm of frustration. As dishes piled up at home, an unsettling silence filled the air. Each glance between Sarah and Emma felt charged with unspoken words. Sarah believed in the power of hard work and the meritocracy she had always preached in her classroom. Emma, however, felt betrayed by a system that didn't reward her relentless efforts. The divide was growing. At a community potluck, tension crackled like an electric wire. Fueled by her frustration, Emma stood up and spoke passionately. "We live in an America where our backgrounds often determine our future," she declared, her voice unwavering. "What about students like me, who work hard every day? The American dream shouldn't just be for a select few." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, while others bristled at her words, igniting a heated discussion that exposed the underlying biases of their tight-knit town. Sarah felt her heart pounding. Emma's voice was a clarion call for change, one that resonated deeply, forcing families to confront something they often ignored. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, her mind raced. Emma had sparked a fire of conversation that might change their community. She knew this was just the beginning. Would they embrace the challenge or shy away? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In the weeks that followed, Emma's call to action gathered momentum, inspiring community leaders to come together. A mentorship program aimed at leveling the playing field was born from her courageous speech, and Sarah found herself both proud and scared. Could they really challenge the status quo? Then came the school board meeting, a battleground for entrenched beliefs. As Sarah stood to defend Emma's vision, her voice shook, but it held a new strength. "We need an equitable system for all students." The atmosphere was thick with tension. Would they stand united for a more just future, or would the shadows of privilege continue to dim their hopes? Emma's words had ignited a movement. What would come next? The school board was packed that night. Teachers, parents, and community members filled every seat, their murmurs creating a low hum that vibrated through the old gymnasium. Each face reflected a mix of hope, anger, and uncertainty. Sarah felt all the eyes in the room on her, and her heart raced as she prepared to speak again. She glanced over at Emma, who sat front and center, her expression a blend of determination and anxiety. The weight of the moment hung over them like a thick fog. They had stirred something deep within their community, and now it was only a matter of time before it would reveal itself, for better or for worse. A board member stood up, looking stern. "Emma's call for equity is a slippery slope," he argued, his voice echoing off the gym walls. "Are we to sacrifice merit for the sake of some misguided sense of fairness? This is a dangerous precedent." Gasps filled the room. Sarah took a deep breath, searching for the right words. She felt the warmth of Emma's support beside her and the cool unease of doubt creeping in. "What we are talking about isn't sacrificing merit, It's expanding opportunities, she countered, feeling a surge of courage. We cannot ignore the simple fact that not all students start from the same place. It's time to invest in their potential, no matter their background. The room fell silent. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears, urging her to continue. I've watched my daughter work her tail off. She deserves every chance to reach her dreams, just like everyone else. Murmurs rose again, this time mixed with nods of agreement. But then another voice rang out, a frail one from the back. You're right, but what about those of us who feel overlooked in this process? It was Mrs. Jenkins, a beloved widow who had spent years volunteering in the school. What about the kids who don't fit into any category? As Sarah and Emma exchanged worried glances, Sarah realized that the conversation was widening. It wasn't just about scholarships or equity. This was about the very soul of their community. Before she could reply, Emma stood up. She seemed to glow with a newfound passion. We're all in this together, aren't we? Everyone deserves a voice. Every story matters. The crowd shifted, leaning into her words, the tension easing just a fraction. But just as a sense of unity began to build, a father stood up, his face tight with anger. But what about my son? He has worked hard, and he is not going to be pushed aside for someone who just wants a free pass. The air crackled again, and the room buzzed with a rush of conflicting emotions. Sarah's heart sank as she wished she could bridge the gap, but she felt trapped between two opposing sides, two sets of beliefs. She couldn't dismiss the father's pain, but she also couldn't ignore the truth Emma had so fearlessly declared. Motioning for quiet, she said, each story is important, and we need to listen to each other. We cannot allow fear to silence us again. Let us create a system that honors all students. Let this be a conversation, not a battlefield. The discussion raged on, voices intertwining in a chaotic symphony of discontent and hope. As the clock ticked closer to 11, it became clear this was only the beginning. As Sarah stepped down from the podium, a wave of exhaustion and relief washed over her. Emma rushed into her arms. You did amazing, Mom. Did we do enough? Sarah turned solemn, fear looming in her chest. Together, they watched the crowd continue to argue, and with every passing moment, the question hung heavier in the air. Were they ready to fight for change, no matter the cost? The answer was somewhere in that sea of uncertainty, and they were determined to uncover it, but would they find the support they needed to transform their community? The following morning felt heavier than usual. The sun rose, casting a warm glow through Sarah's kitchen window, but her heart was still tangled in the chaos of the previous night. Emma sat at the table, pushing her cereal around, her mind clearly somewhere else. Hey, you okay? Sarah asked, sitting across from her. Emma nodded, though her eyes betrayed her. I just can't stop thinking about what Mrs. Jenkins said. It's not just about scholarships, it's about everyone. What about the kids who don't have a voice? Sarah could see the gears turning in Emma's mind. The determination was still there, but doubt flickered at the edges. Maybe we need to do something more inclusive, Emma said quietly. We could invite families to share their stories. Let them speak up about their experiences. That's an amazing idea, Emma. But do you think people will come? Sarah pushed her chair back, the thought sparking a flicker of hope inside her. Emma looked up, her eyes filling with conviction. If we let them know they matter, they'll come. We just have to be brave enough to listen. Before Sarah could respond, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Mrs. Jenkins standing there, her eyes filled with a mixture of worry and support. Good morning, Sarah. May I come in? Of course, Mrs. Jenkins. Would you like some coffee? As they settled at the table, Emma wasted no time. Mrs. Jenkins, we were just talking about how we can make sure everyone has a voice. Mrs. Jenkins smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. That's wonderful, dear. I've seen so many kids slip through the cracks because no one asked them to share. They have stories that matter. Could you help us organize a community gathering? Emma's excitement was infectious. Absolutely, Mrs. Jenkins replied, her voice steady. We need to create a safe space where parents can express their concerns and children feel valued. It's important we open that dialogue. The prospect of gathering families was daunting, yet a sense of purpose started to bloom in the air. They spent the morning brainstorming ideas, creating flyers, and reaching out to families about the gathering. The school's gym would serve as a welcoming arena for voices new and old. Later, as they wrapped up, Emma looked up at Sarah, her determination rekindled. What if we called it United Voices? It could really symbolize what we want to achieve. That's perfect, Sarah said, her heart swelling with pride. This could be the turning point. But just as excitement started to buzz in the air, they were jolted by a loud crash outside. Sarah and Emma exchanged worried glances and rushed to the window. A group of students had gathered, animatedly waving a large banner. It read, "Equity, not entitlement." "Looks like we're not the only ones with ideas," Emma whispered, her eyes widening. Fear and exhilaration coursed through Sarah. They hadn't just stirred the community, they had ignited something much larger. Would their gathering be a space for healing or fuel for further divide? As they stepped outside, Sarah took a deep breath, sensing the palpable energy of change swirling around them. But the real question lingered in her mind. If they truly wanted to unite their community, were they ready for the backlash that might come next? The thrumming heartbeat of anticipation hung in the air as Sarah and Emma stepped outside. The sunlight glinted off the students' banner, their youthful energy a stark contrast to the weight of uncertainty that pressed down on Sarah like a heavy stone. "Look at them," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're standing for what they believe in just like us." A knot formed in Sarah's throat. She wanted to feel that same boldness, but the worry gnawed at her, the fear that this gathering could provoke more anger than understanding. As they approached the crowd, she could hear snippets of passionate conversation, mingling with laughter and a few nervous giggles. The air was charged, and for a moment, everything felt alive. "Are they going to join us?" Sarah wondered aloud, glancing at Emma. "We should invite them." "They're part of all of this," Emma replied, her eyes brightening. "We need young voices too." Before they could take another step, Mrs. Jenkins joined them, her eyes scanning the scene with a mixture of pride and concern. "This is a good start," she said, nodding toward the students. "But it's important to guide this energy, to ensure it channels into constructive dialogue." Emma turned to her, determination forming a promise on her lips. "We can take the initiative. We can invite them to share their thoughts at the United Voices gathering." "What if they don't want to listen?" Sarah interjected hesitantly. "What if they just want to make noise?" "Noise can lead to conversation," Mrs. Jenkins said softly, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Sometimes it's the loudest voices that remind us to listen." Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded. "Okay, let us do it. Let us ask them." They approached the group, and as they got closer, the students noticed them. One by one, they turned to face Sarah and Emma, curious eyes shining with anticipation. Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding and yet buoyed by an unexpected surge of courage. "Hey, everyone! We're organizing a community gathering called United Voices," Emma announced, her voice carrying through the crowd. "We want to hear from all of you. Your thoughts matter just as much as anyone else's." The chatter quieted as faces turned toward them, some intrigued, others skeptical. But then a boy at the front, a confident-looking junior named Leo, stepped forward. "What is the point? Are we just gonna sit around and talk while nothing changes?" Emma felt the challenge in his voice, and she welcomed it. "No," she responded, meeting his gaze. "We want to create a space where everyone can share their experiences. We're not just talking, we want to make real changes." "And why should we trust you?" Another voice piped up from further back. A girl with bright pink hair crossed her arms defiantly. "Because we're all in this together," Sarah interjected, stepping beside Emma. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone in our community feeling valued and heard." Just then, an unexpected low murmur rippled through the crowd, a mixture of surprise and intrigue, as other students whispered among themselves. The energy shifted, opening a door not just to their curiosity, but also to their fears. As they exchanged uncertain glances, Sarah felt a wave of responsibility wash over her. They had thrown the door open, but were they ready to walk through? "Will you join us?" Emma asked, her heart racing. We need your voices in this. Leo regarded them thoughtfully, the skepticism still in his eyes. Maybe. But if we do join, we want real change. Not just talk. Then we'll make sure of it, Sarah promised, the words spilling out. We'll work together. The tension in the air was palpable, and Sarah could sense the weight of this moment. Would the students roll up their sleeves and leap into action? Or would their fear silence them like so many others before? As they awaited a response, a tense silence fell. In that quiet, Sarah realized what lay ahead would test not just their resolve, but their understanding of one another. And under the weight of possibility, she couldn't help but wonder, if they succeeded in rallying the community, what truths would emerge that they weren't prepared to face? The silence stretched, thick with unspoken thoughts. Sarah glanced at Emma, her friend's eyes wide with a mixture of hope and urgency. They needed this to work. They needed to find a way to bridge the gap between adults who had grown weary of empty promises and a youth hungry for change. Then Leo broke the stillness, his voice steady but edged with a challenge. Okay, we'll join. But we need to make sure we're actually doing something. No fluff. A wave of relief washed over Sarah, followed by a spark of excitement. This was a crack in the wall they were ready to break through. Emma's smile seemed to illuminate the space between them, and she nodded vigorously. Absolutely. Let us brainstorm together. What do you think we should focus on? A girl stepped forward, her bright pink hair shining like a beacon amidst the rest. Our school has a ton of issues. Honestly, trust me, we're tired of the way things are run. We want to change how we are treated, by teachers, by the school board, by everyone. The words struck a chord within Sarah, echoing her own experiences and frustrations. What if we focus on education reform? She suggested, her voice laced with enthusiasm. Yeah, Leo replied, arms crossing, his demeanor likely half skeptical, but also intrigued. But it can't just be about what we want. It has to be what the whole community wants, what parents want, and what the school needs to do differently. I agree, Emma chimed in, her heart racing with shared passion. Let us gather stories from everyone's students, parents, and teachers. We can compile them and present a united front. I like where this is going, another voice called from the crowd, an earnest boy with glasses. But we can't just put everything in a folder and hope it gets read. We need action. Right? Emma exclaimed, leaning forward. We could create a petition. Something strong that demands the changes we need. Excitement bubbled among the students, murmurs of agreement echoing throughout the group. It was palpable now, the shift from skepticism to a shared sense of purpose. Sarah felt her heart lift. Maybe this was the beginning they had hoped for. As discussions picked up steam, Sarah caught sight of a few familiar faces in the crowd, her classmates who had always sat on the sidelines, but now they were standing forward, fully engaged. She felt their hesitance shift towards willingness, the raw energy of youth rising up against apathy. However, just as she began to feel that excitement swell, a voice broke the optimistic haze. This is all well and good, but what happens when the teachers shut us down? When the adults don't listen? The question hung heavily now, a shadow looming over their burgeoning movement. Sarah swallowed hard, uncertainty creeping in again. She had believed so deeply that this time could be different. But what if it wasn't? A troubling thought curled in her mind, battling against the hope. Would they be squashed under the weight of authority? Was there a point in fighting if they were destined to lose? The moment urged her to make a decision. If we want to be heard, we need to act now. We can't let fear hold us back. Her words flew out, a challenge wrapped in vulnerability. What if we start right now with forming a committee or a group to tackle these issues head-on? Nods of agreement appeared in the crowd, yet she noticed the doubts still lingering in some corners. Leo stepped back up, eyes thoughtful. Let us figure out how to make this real. If we don't stand by our words, we're just making noise, right? A chorus of voices rose, affirming his sentiment, filling Sarah with both exhilaration and fear. She craved this change but desperately wished she could ensure they'd be able to confront the pushback they would inevitably face. As they continued to brainstorm their plans, engulfed in conversation, Sarah caught Emma's gaze. In that silent exchange, They shared a moment of understanding the spark of hope mixed with the weight of their challenge. What surprised them both was when one of the students quietly lifted their hand, a hesitant offer to speak. Even as the weight of leadership socked down hard. "Guys, I think there are things I want to say too." The voice was soft but firm, drawing everyone's attention like glue, cementing the possibilities of connection, vulnerability, and a genuine yearning for change. As the student prepared to share, Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken. What might they reveal? What buried truths lay waiting to surface, potentially shaking their extant understanding of their community forever? As the student took a deep breath, the tension in the room thickened. Sarah could see her palms were clammy, but determination flickered in her eyes. "I want to talk about the mental health resources in our school," she began, her voice trembling but gaining strength as she spoke. "A lot of us feel like we're carrying these huge weights on our shoulders, and nobody's looking out for us." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Sarah's heart swelled as more students began to nod. There was an urgency in the girl's words that resonated deeply. "It feels like the teachers think we're just here to get grades, but we're more than that. We need support from someone who understands what we're actually going through." As the girl paused to collect her thoughts, Sarah noticed Emma leaning in, her expression a mix of empathy and concern. The dynamic shifted. This was no longer just a meeting about the structural issues at school. It was about the very souls of the students. The weight of unexplored truths pressed down on everyone, and in this moment, the air was electric. "I've lost friends to depression and anxiety," the girl continued, her voice trembling but unwavering. "We're not just numbers in a system. We struggle, and I feel like there are so many of us who are lost. If we don't start talking about this, we're going to keep losing people." The gravity of her words hung over them, and Sarah's heart raced. This wasn't just noise. This was raw, unfiltered pain that needed to be confronted. She looked around the room, seeing faces that mirrored her own mix of fear and determination. There was a truth in vulnerability, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark ignite within her. Leo stepped closer to the girl, his posture proud. "Thank you for sharing that," he said with sincerity. "If we want real change, we need to include mental health resources in our fight. We can't just demand better treatment, we need to demand better support. Right?" Emma jumped in, her enthusiasm contagious. "Let us focus on creating awareness around mental health issues. We can organize workshops, invite speakers, anything to help students feel seen and heard." The group buzzed with renewed energy as students exchanged ideas, and Sarah couldn't help but smile. They were morphing this movement into something that encapsulated their struggles, something that spoke to the lives they lived daily. It was transforming from a simple protest to a powerful wave of vulnerability and authenticity. But just as this hopeful energy filled the room, a ripple of anxiety washed over Sarah. The realization dawned. This kind of honesty would draw attention from the very adults they were already worried about. What if they didn't get the support they needed? What if their truths fell upon deaf ears? Before she could voice her concerns, another student rose to add to the conversation. "What if the school pushes back? What if they refuse our requests just because they don't want to deal with the reality of how we're feeling?" The quietness that followed was almost oppressive. Sarah could feel the tension climb higher, each voice that had just been so hopeful now cloaked in doubt. "What if we document everything?" Emma blurted out, sudden inspiration lighting her eyes. "We could create a video, share our stories, really show the impact these issues have on us." A collective excitement reignited at those words. They began brainstorming details of how to make this project happen, but Sarah still felt the gnawing worry beneath her excitement. This journey they were embarking on was heavier than they realized, the uncertainties of their futures looming like shadows. Hiding truths felt like the easy way out, but they weren't here to take the easy path. They were here to confront their reality, whatever consequences that might hold. With determination resonating throughout the room, Sarah took a deep breath. She would not let fear snuff out their flame. What they were building was important no matter how daunting it seemed. But as they continued to discuss ideas, a glance at Emma caught her attention, and Sarah couldn't shake the worry that spread in her heart. Would they truly have the courage to stand up to authority, or would their hesitations lead them astray? Questions hung in the air, as heavy as the truths they were beginning to confront. Little did they know they were just warming up to a battle that would shake their community to its core. The next day, the anticipation crackled in the air as Sarah and Emma sat in their usual spot in the cafeteria. A makeshift meeting room had been assigned to them, where they hoped to gather their peers one more time to solidify their plans. But as lunch hour unfolded, it felt less like a casual school day and more like they were gearing up for something monumental. Emma's fingers drummed against the table nervously as she glanced around, searching for the familiar faces of their friends. "Do you think anyone else will show up?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. Sarah could hear the worry beneath her words. They had made bold claims, and now, after the initial energy, fear crept back in. "They will," Sarah reassured, though she couldn't ignore the knot twisting in her stomach. As students filtered in, it became clear this wasn't going to be just another gathering. There was an intensity in their eyes, a shared understanding that something deep and troubling was about to be said aloud. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you all for coming," Sarah began, her voice stronger than she felt. "We've been talking about the mental health resources in our school and how they're just not enough. But we all know it's more than just resources. It's about listening, really listening to each other. Sharing our stories." The group nodded, their faces earnest and focused. A girl named Mia, usually shy and reserved, piped up. "I think if we share our stories, it'll create a safe space for all of us. When I was in a dark place, I felt so alone. No one knew." The room went quiet, her confession hanging in the air. Sarah watched Mia closely. There was a bravery in her vulnerability that fueled the energy swirling around them. "We need to stop pretending we're fine when we're not. We need help, and that starts with us." The table erupted in murmurs, students leaning in, eager to share. Each voice that rose added a layer to the collective resolve building. Stories spilled forth, battles with anxiety, struggles with feeling invisible, encounters with bullying, all the unsung battles that loomed large in their lives. It was cathartic, emotional, and raw. Then Leo raised his hand, his expression serious. "But what happens when we share these stories? What if it backfires? What if the school tries to silence us?" A tense silence followed, but it was Emma who spoke next, her tone resolved. "That's why we need to document everything. Our stories matter. If they try to shut us down, we need to be ready to show what we're feeling. Real evidence." With the idea laid out, excitement spilled back into the room, and for the first time, Sarah felt a surge of force united among them. They brainstormed ideas on how to execute their documentary, what stories to tell, how to present them, and the kind of support they would need. But as the talks grew animated, a whispered fear lurked at the edges of her mind. Would this make their situation worse? The prospect of facing adult authority, the very people expected to support them in an open forum, felt daunting. What if they faced backlash for being so honest? As the group wrapped up their brainstorming session, Sarah caught Emma's eye. The fire of determination still burned, yet little did they both realize that the real test lay just ahead. With the plans made, one question lingered: what if their truth would stir more than just conversation? When the gym door swung open, the principal walked in. She eyed the gathered students, assessing their energy. The murmur in the room stuttered to a halt as she cleared her throat, the atmosphere shifting once more. "Students, we need to talk about what's happening here." Everyone seemed to collectively hold their breath, the tension palpable. Would their moment of honesty be met with understanding or scrutiny? And more importantly, would they truly be able to push for change or face an ugly reality instead? There they were, standing on the edge of something transformational or utterly terrifying. Each heartbeat echoed with uncertainty. What would the principal say? What would this mean for their plans? Sarah's heart raced. This was about to get very real. The principal's voice cut through the heavy silence, her gaze sweeping over the group like a spotlight. "I've heard some disturbing rumors about what's been discussed in this room," she began, her tone firm, yet curious. "It's come to my attention that there are ongoing issues regarding mental health that need our immediate attention." Sarah's heart sank. It wasn't just the principal's words that sent a jolt of cold dread through her. It was the palpable wave of anxiety that rippled across the room. Students exchanged worried glances. Would they be labeled as troublemakers? Would their vulnerability be weaponized against them? The principal continued, "While I appreciate your willingness to talk about these subjects, I need to remind you that there are appropriate channels to express your grievances and concerns." A tight knot formed in Sarah's chest. She felt Emma squeeze her hand beneath the table. Was this it? Would they be dismissed, just like all the other times? Isn't that the problem? Emma blurted out, the words flying from her lips before she could stop them. How do we know those channels work? For many of us, reaching out has felt like shouting into a void. The room responded with a chorus of murmurs. Sarah's heart raced. Emma had lit a spark, and with it came the risk of igniting a fire they couldn't control. The principal raised an eyebrow, surprised but unyielding. "I understand frustration, but airing these concerns in a public forum can lead to misunderstandings. Have you considered the consequences?" There was a moment of stunned silence before Sarah found her voice. "But these aren't just rumors. They are our realities. We can't ignore them anymore." The room buzzed with energy, fueled by shared experiences and simmering emotions. Students began voicing their fears and frustrations, a rush of words tumbling out, each sentence laced with a desire for validation. "We feel isolated. We feel unheard. We need to feel safe." As the students spoke, Sarah caught a glimpse of the principal's shifting expression. There was a flicker of concern. Even so, the weight of authority still hung heavily in the air. "I appreciate your passion," the principal said, her voice steady. "But you must understand that standing against the system can come with risks. We're a school. Rules exist for a reason. But what if the rules are what's hurting us?" Mia's voice rang out, a softness and strength within it. "What if we're the ones changing the narrative?" With that, the room erupted into applause, a chaotic yet invigorating wave of enthusiasm. Sarah could hardly believe what was happening. A spark of hope ignited in her chest. "We can create solutions together," she said, raising her voice to be heard above the din. "This doesn't have to be just us fighting against the system. What if we worked with you? What if we made this a community effort?" The principal hesitated, clearly taken aback. "That's a considerable suggestion," she replied slowly. "However, a partnership requires accountability on all sides." Sarah nodded, feeling the rising tide of determination. "We can do that. We want to be a part of the solution." The atmosphere shifted again. Something palpable began to forge between the students and the principal, the potential for collaboration and understanding. But was it enough? Could they truly bridge the divide, or was this just the beginning of a much larger challenge? As the principal considered their words, Sarah's mind raced. They were teetering on a precipice, and every second felt crucial. What if this meeting cracked open the door to real change or slammed it shut? What if they actually succeeded in building that bridge? Her heart thumped in her chest as she realized this was it. They'd taken their first real step toward making a difference. But before victory could be celebrated, would they be ready to face whatever backlash might come next? The principal finally nodded, a sign of partial agreement. "I'll give you some time to gather your thoughts, but know this. Whatever you decide will not come without challenges." As the group held their collective breath, Sarah's mind twirled with possibilities. This was merely the opening act, and so much was still unresolved. Could they truly be the voice for change they desperately sought? Outside, clouds rolled in, heavy and gray, a storm brewing in the distance, mirroring the uncertainty inside. Sarah watched as the principal turned to leave, her heart racing. What awaited them around the corner? And then, there it was again, that unshakable feeling that they had just begun the hardest part of their journey. What twists would this tangled path lead them through next? The moment the principal stepped out, the room erupted into a buzz of excitement and uncertainty. Students leaned in closer, needing to feel the pulse of their shared experience. Sarah felt the heat radiating from those around her, a blend of hope and fear intertwining in the air. "We did it!" Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. "I can't believe she actually listened." But even as her friend's words sank in, shadows of doubt crept into Sarah's mind. Did she really listen? Or just pretend to? She asked aloud, her voice shaking slightly. Mia shrugged, the confidence she had moments before now tempered with concern. We pushed for change, but what does that really mean for us? Maybe it's a step at least we were heard, Emma said earnestly. A few students began to crowd around Sarah, eager to share their thoughts. It could mean something big, one girl said, her voice tinged with hope. We could start a club or something to keep this going. Yeah, another chimed in. A safe space where we can actually talk without worry. Sarah smiled, a flicker of optimism igniting within her. That was it, the flame they needed to keep flickering. But as quickly as the thought lit her up, it dimmed under the weight of reality. What would the administration's accountability really mean? What if they were met with resistance instead of support? The crowd began to disperse slowly, voices tapering off to low conversations. Sarah felt a tug on her sleeve. It was Mia, her expression growing serious. Hey, listen, she said, lowering her voice. What if we end up facing backlash? People could start talking, spreading rumors. Or worse, Sarah said, the knot in her stomach tightening again. What if the principal pulls back her support? We've put ourselves out there, and it feels like we've thrown a stone into water, hoping it makes waves. Mia nodded, her brow furrowed. We have to prepare for that. We need to decide our next steps, together I mean, if we really want to push for change. We have to be ready for anything. With renewed determination, Sarah stood tall. Okay, let us brainstorm. We can meet after school, talk through everything. We need a plan that can hold up when things get tough. The students nodded in agreement, looking to Sarah for guidance. There was solidarity in that moment, a deeper bond forming between them as they faced uncertainty together. But as they prepared to leave the meeting, Sarah's heart sank again. As much as they felt like they'd gained, there was an undercurrent of doubt swirling inside her. Would they face resistance? Would their voices be silenced once more? Outside, raindrops began to trickle down from the skies, the storm finally breaking free. It felt like the universe reflected their turmoil. With the heavy clouds hanging above them, the students parted ways, promising to meet soon to discuss their ideas. That night, Sarah lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts spiraling. She was both excited and terrified. If they were going to build something real, they needed to be prepared not just with ideas, but with strength to stand firm against challenges to come. What if they pushed too hard? What if they failed? A moment hung in the air like the storm clouds outside, pregnant with possibility. Closing her eyes, Sarah felt a single tear slip down her cheek. When dawn broke, would they emerge stronger, or would everything they built come crashing down? That question lingered like a whisper of thunder in the distance, too loud to ignore. Sarah held her breath. Could they truly carry the weight of change, or was this just another fleeting dream? The next morning dawned dreary and gray, an appropriate reflection of Sarah's mood. She stood in her kitchen, brewing coffee while glancing at the small calendar on the wall, tracking the days leading up to the United Voices gathering. Today would mark a crucial step, a chance to transform all their discussions into action. It felt like standing on the brink of something monumental. The doorbell rang, breaking her reverie. Sarah quickly wiped her hands on a dish towel and answered the door to find Emma, her face lit with determination despite the rain drizzling down outside. Are you ready? Emma asked, her voice bubbling with nervous energy. I think so, Sarah replied, forcing a smile even as her heart raced. Let's just hope everyone shows up. With the community center serving as their backdrop, Sarah and Emma arrived early to prepare. Tables were set, chairs arranged, and banners hung. Every detail mattered. This was their chance to prove the importance of their cause, to encourage open dialogue. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, families began to trickle in. Conversations pitched softly at first, but soon, an undercurrent of expectancy filled the room. Sarah noticed familiar faces: Mrs. Jenkins, Mia, even Leo. The energy shifted. Apprehension began to transform into hope. Look at them, Emma said, beaming. This is it, Mom. We're doing this. Together, Sarah echoed, feeling the strength of unity seep into her soul. But as the first speaker took the podium, an older gentleman discussing resources for mental health, the uncertainties returned. Would they be as committed to listening as they had been to talk? How many hearts would courageously bear their truths? One by one, participants stepped forward. Emma shared her journey. Her voice wobbled, but the conviction in her narrative radiated strength. Mia followed, recounting her struggles in a world where silence felt safest. Each story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of vulnerability that echoed through the room. Slowly, something remarkable unfolded. More individuals found the courage to voice their thoughts, some sharing raw emotional truths. Each person's bravery inspired the next, creating momentum that felt electric walls crumbling, barriers breaking down. But as the emotional fire surged, Sarah caught a glimpse of the principal at the back, her face etched with curiosity blending with concern. Would they truly be met with the understanding that had once felt like a distant dream? Just as the gathering reached its climax, a familiar face pushed through the crowd. It was Leo, steadfast and bold. "I just want to say something," he announced. All eyes turned toward him, the air thick with anticipation. "People like us have felt unheard for too long. We want to help create a future where we don't have to suffer in silence anymore. But it starts here, with genuine support from our community." His words pierced through the noise, illuminating a path that felt so long overdue. The room erupted into applause, an outpouring of affirmation. Emma's eyes glistened, pride swelling in her chest. Sarah felt her heart race. This was it, the voices united, sounding together in a chorus of change. As the gathering began to wind down, the principal approached the podium once more. "I want to applaud each of you for your strength. This conversation matters more than you may know." A wave of relief washed over Sarah. Perhaps their truth would not just be brushed aside after all. After more discussions and planning, they formed committees to tackle the various issues they had raised. Mental health awareness, supporting those with marginalized backgrounds. Together they forged ahead, each person stepping forward, igniting change in their own way. Weeks passed, and the gathering transformed into something larger than Sarah had ever imagined. They hosted workshops, organized community panels, invested energy into changing their school and neighborhood for the better. Testimonials flowed in, stories struggled against the dark and emerged victorious. Through it all, Sarah found her voice too. She reached out to local media, highlighting their movement, their voices. What started as whispers turned into a rallying cry that resonated far beyond the town. One evening, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, she felt the serene warmth in her heart. "Can you believe everything that has changed?" she whispered, brushing Emma's hair behind her ear. Emma smiled, her body glowing with every bit of hope and promise. "We did it together, Mom. And it's just the beginning." As Sarah turned off the light, she was filled with awe at the transformation not just in Emma, but within herself, their community. Each brave step had led to something they never thought possible. This was no longer just about dreams. This was about action, about shifting the very fabric of their community. And just like that, under a blanket of stars, Sarah realized they had rewritten their narrative together. The future held challenges, but they were ready. With hearts open, they would continue to bridge the gaps, listen to the whispers of their community, and inspire those who felt lost to stand tall in the face of adversity. This was forever etched in their journey, one of resilience, unity, and transformation. But now it was time for the world outside to hear their transformation, to witness the power of community, to embrace the idea that every voice held significance. As Sarah closed the bedroom door, determination surged through her, a bold urge to share their story, an invitation for others to join their movement. This was real, and they were just getting started. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss these exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Let's keep this movement alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Real change starts with us.